Hello and thanks for joining us on your channel of choice, Africa Independent Television AIT. Let me welcome you to the Signature Show. I'm Wabos Njoko, and in this edition of the program, what is INEC doing? As Abdullahi Adamu, chairman of All Progressive Congress APC, seeks to muscle Bashir Machina out of his hard-won senatorial ticket. 9 justices of the Supreme Court want to commit rank suicide. They break the code of silence. Are they right? The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Muhammad Tanko. The trial of ABBA Kyari will shock Nigerians with revelations. So says NDLEA. But is NDLEA going to equity with clean hands? The pretense about fuel pump price 165 naira per litre in areas close to Aso Rock Presidential Villa and anything from 195 to 225 naira per litre in the suburbs. Association of Petroleum Products Marketers and Distributors want subsidy to remain. Plus, our thank you, which this Sunday goes to the Midnight Crew. I'm sure you want to invest the next 1 hour with us. Just stay with us, and we will be back after this short break. When the issues matter and the need to know matters.
The chief of staff of Nigeria couldn't go to his village because it was being occupied by Boko Haram.
Politicians and political parties have massively used money to buy votes and to change the course of electoral direction.
You will also remember the very APC itself set up a Rufai committee recommending restructuring doesn't mean anything. Go back to federalism.
Or the fun and the fair to relieve everyday care.
Life is a riddle, my son. The land bled when Uvoranwen was put in shackles. Heaven wept when Saruwiwa was laid to rest.
Everything comes with the Judge Too Funny. Everything comes with who I am.
The Signature Show, your show that matters, on AIT every Sunday at 2 p.m. Now, what are the conditions for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to certify the primary election of a political party to be genuine and the candidate from such an election to be authentic? In addition to other conditions, INEC must monitor such election. So, any party that sends the name of a candidate to an election, the primary of which INEC did not monitor, should know that it is embarking on a journey of no destination. But that does not seem to be what is playing out in the All Progressive Congress, APC. Now, remember, last week, we brought you the story of Vin Martin Obiora-Ilo, the APC House of Representatives candidate for the Anire Ogu Ojiriva Federal Constituency of Enugu State. Now remember, after a primary election monitored by INEC in the presence of the police, DSS, and party officials, Vin Martin was declared the winner. But the APC party chairman in Enugu State decided that due process is of neither use nor consequence. He has elected to give the ticket to whoever pleases him and not the man produced by due process. Now, as if this is the way of the APC, the national chairman of APC, Abdullahi Adamu, having failed to impose Senate President Ahmed Lawan on the party as a consensus presidential candidate, has now submitted Lawan's name to INEC as the party's candidate for the Yobe North senatorial seat for the 2023 election. Bashir Machina, the candidate who got the ticket from a primary election, which was monitored by INEC, is now in the cold, struggling for his electoral life. And Adamu, speaking on BBC Hausa Service last week, warned Machina to be careful if a man who came forth in election could be made governor under an APC government, and the 7th central bank governor could declare partisan interest to contest the presidential ticket of a party. Watch out for me, before February 2023, I could become presidential flag bearer for Politics Without Bitterness Party, and INEC will accept me whether they monitor the election or not. This is the signature show on AIT. Now, the strength and aura and awe of the mafia, the infinite kings of Italian crime empire, is Omata. A code of secrecy and silence which makes it impossible to extract information from any member of mafia if arrested. Like the mafia, the Nigerian judiciary, especially the Supreme Court, operates under a code of silence. To break that code is to step out of line and could attract a mortal hammer. But 9 justices of the Supreme Court last week elected to commit rank suicide. They wrote the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tanko Muhammad, accusing him of inelegant financial administration. He was alleged to be sending some people, cronies, on training and deploying funds meant for judicial functions to uses other than judiciary. In his reaction, His Lordship Tanko Muhammad labeled the rebellious judges what he would call the slaughtered chicken. Instead of rebelling against the knife that killed them, the judicial chicken twists their angry neck in the hollow of the pot, innocent cooking pot. The financial blizzard sweeping the gowns of his lordships is also tearing to shreds other sectors of national life, the Chief Justice of Nigeria said. This is a story that needs to be further told. And correspondent Marvelous Obomano has been speaking to lawyers.
It is good that we are now hearing and knowing what is going on. Not only here, you may recall that I reacted to that, and I said that that issues that those 14 wise men and women raised must not be swept under the carpet. Now, in that my reaction, many judges across Nigerians are calling that the books of the judiciary be open and be scrutinized by those who have responsibility of doing so. And I think in one of the letters or the reaction to it, an erudite jurist described some of the chief judges of the states as judicial tiger that are on rampage, looking for unmerited favor from their colleagues. If that is not investigated, then you discover that the stream of justice will be polluted. You recall that a lot of us are now saying that the quality of jurisprudence coming from our court is dwindling in geometrical proportion. And the reason is very simple. No hungry man will conduct a well-researched reasoning if your welfare, your allowances, your legitimate allowances are not paid. Then how do you expect a well-reasoned, well-researched judgment to come out of our courts? Judges, like lawyers, are ministers in the temple of justice, and they are chief priests. And if you are chief priests, then the purity expected of you must be unassailed. Indeed, that's why we say justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done. So if the confidence of Nigerians are beginning to get shaken by the myriad of allegations coming from the judiciary, which is supposed to be the hope of not only the common man and woman on the street, but the hope of the big men, then something must be done. Because the bane of Nigerian society, the bane of our development, is corruption. And once there is these unaccounted actions unaccountability, non-accountability of judicial actions. And when judicial officers become judicial tyrants, judicial despots, then Nigerians will have no hope, because the hope of Nigeria is in the judiciary. And once the judiciary is dancing naked in marketplaces, the awe with which the Nigerian general public holds that very revered arm of government will go down. And you know that today we are facing very terrible insecurity in our nation. And the judiciary is supposed to be the policeman of the Nigerian society. So where a policeman is unable to police himself well with the purity of heart, then who will police the police? Those who claim that they came to fight corruption, are they fighting it? Because corruption is not about taking money and receiving bribe and so on and so forth. When you engage in nepotistic character, and when you are what you know does not matter, is who you know, then it's corruption. Nigeria is deeply seated in the seat of corruption in every department, both in ecclesiastical world and so there is corruption everywhere, and we are not prepared to fight it. You and I are not prepared to fight it, because when you are prepared to fight corruption, then there will be no sacred cow. The law must be evenly applied. But when we begin to do selective justice, and you are suffering from selective amnesia in your brain, in your reasoning, and you are not reasonably fit for a purpose, then that itself, and you want to remain in that place, that itself is corruption. Nigeria is in a terrible financial mess. We are terribly in an unprecedented mess. We are in the middle of the river, very, very thirsty. Few had cornered the resources that would have gone to all, and we know it. And if EFCC and ICPC and the rest will begin to do investigation, it's the same Nigerian that will begin to talk about primordial tribal sentiment. If we arrest you today now, they will start looking for a state of origin. It could be that because you chase my girlfriend, I chase your girlfriend, that we're fighting. So Nigeria sometimes don't allow fight against corruption to work, because religions have become, like Amma said, religion is the opium of Nigerian society. Those who are far from God are fighting for God, and they don't know God. So how do you talk about that? Nigerian society, where people in Nigeria, in those days, there was no distinction between Muslim and Christian. We celebrate them together. But today we have now elevated religion to the pedestrian that it has taken. Even though the Nigerian constitution says Nigeria is secular, Nigerian state is guilty of dabbling into religious issues. And that's why we are where we are. So nobody is ready to call a spade a spade. And the legal profession that ought to be a profession of light has allowed darkness to overshadow it.
These are elders that have passed through so many ranks before they get to where they are now. Some of them started their judicial careers as magistrates, area court judges, customary court judges at the lower level, until eventually they get to high court by virtue of elevation to the court of appeal, and eventually to the apex court, which is the highest point of their career. So they are experienced people. They are not doing this thing for the first time. So I believe what constrained them to do that later is because they were pushed to the wall. Because that has not happened in the history of this country. And these men are elders by virtue of their age. They are not people that are looking, they are not out to make money by virtue of the position they are occupying there as justice of the Supreme Court. Because they have seen it all. They are not young men that are looking for money by all means. They are not desperate. But there is a level every human being can be pushed to, and then he will just react. And that reaction, I sincerely believe that they must have exhausted all avenues open to them, because they are not at that age. I'm sure they must have approached even the Chief Justice of Nigeria. If you say, okay, justice is the hope of a common man, one would expect whoever is there to do, to act, to conduct himself in the best manner that an average person, a reasonable person will say, yes, he has done his best. But in the instant case under discussion, we have a situation whereby my Lord, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, is the head of that institution. And his brother judges are now complaining of the inadequacy of things that he ought to have done ordinarily. Because he is not the first Chief Judge of Nigeria. So many have come and they have left. A situation whereby a head of an institution is being accused of only favoring his immediate family is wrong at that age. Because he's not there for only his family. He's there for his brother justices and any other person as far as this country is concerned. He's supposed to stand for justice on the overall table, on the whole. What he says today becomes the law, and everybody will have to cue in, whether you like it or not. But with this development, and that is why my Lord, the Chief Justice of Nigeria should have nipped this crisis in the bud before coming into public arena, public domain, so that the system will not, so that people around will not be confused. Because as it is now, this thing, as little as that thing, can create a lot of tension, confusion, lack of confidence in people that are approaching that apex of the court for justice. His brother justices are not young. They are not toddlers. They are not people like myself and you that are still struggling for money here and there, for better things, properties here and there. These are people that are 65 and above. So they are men filled with wisdom. It's not today they started their judicial career. So that if there's anything like that has by way of financial predicament in the country, they will understand.
Well, from the rank breakers of the Supreme Court or matter to intrigues of a drug trial. Now, in the last week, the world has been celebrating the Drug Week, a week in which attention is focused on the harmful effects of drug abuse, especially to the stability of governments, societies, economies, and the nature of crime. Now, this year, the focus is on management, treatment, integration, and non-stigmatization of drug addicts. But about a year ago, if you remember, when we spoke to the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, they told us that the agency had in its custody DCP ABBA KYARI'S, then commander of the Inspector General of Police Special Intelligence Response Unit. Now, a crack police unit that burst some of the most delicate and complicated crimes in this country. ABBA KYARI'S was in chains over his alleged involvement with a drug ring. This Sunday, we look at the NDLEA, allegations of compromise and corruption in his drug war as we celebrate the World Drug Week. We spoke with Babafemi. Stay with us. Femi, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for bringing me to your show.
Now, Femi, as you heard me say, the world is celebrating the Drug Week. And experts have been speaking to us, and there seems to be a nexus between spiraling crime and spiraling drug abuse. If there's a nexus, crime in Nigeria seems to be rising. Imagine just a few days ago, a lawmaker in Anambra State was beheaded, second time in about 4 months. Gory details of gory crimes. And people say, these crimes cannot be committed clear-eyedly. They go with drug. Are we losing the space? What is your take on this nexus? Are we losing the space?
I don't think we are losing the space. It's a different thing if we have these challenges and nothing is being done. That would probably have been worse. But the fact that now there is a renewed effort at tackling the issues of drug abuse and at the same time the security challenges we have in every part of the country. That fact alone gives us hope that definitely this would most likely be a pressing phase because the situation is not left unattended to. Now talking about, I think at about this year, I was with you on this show, and between then and now, I can tell you that from the side of the NDLEA alone, we've made over 17,000 arrests. That is huge. Over 17,000 arrests. That is huge. Within a space of about 15 months, thereabouts. Now, beyond that, again, if you look at our records of those, out of this figure, we've seen more than 2,300 persons, offenders convicted and jailed, serving jail terms at the moment. With that, we have close to 3.5 million kilograms of assorted illicit drugs seized from across the country, from our communities, from our villages, and from our streets. That is also huge. Just imagine what damages this quantum could have done to our people, to our families out there if they had not been seized from our society. Again, when you also look at the volume of money involved, let's say within the same period, giving cash and these drugs that we estimate to be over 150 billion naira. Just imagine what 150 billion naira could do in the hands of these criminal elements. It could really create a lot of more than what we are seeing now in our country. But then, like I said, I would rather say the space is not left ungoverned. There is hope, there is assurance, because given the spate of the activities we're involved in the area of drug supply reduction, in the area of drug demand reduction, is huge. I've just told you that that aspect of the drug supply reduction. Now coming to drug demand reduction, you've seen within the same period of time over 11,000 persons counseled and rehabilitated, mostly through brief interventions. Then when you also look at that, you will see that what we're trying to do is to balance the equation, to deploy a complete approach to it. While we are not, while we are enforcing the law, we are also not. We are also very conversant with the fact that there are people that may not necessarily be criminals that probably go into drug abuse out of certain circumstances or situations beyond their control that we need to provide help for, and that we are doing for them, trying to bring help their way, and that's exactly what we are doing.
I'll come to that because it's part of the issues that I raised in the course of this conversation. But let me take from what you just said now, the prosecution, the arrests you've made, the drugs you've seized, the successful prosecutions. I looked through the responsibilities of NDLEA, and it includes tracing and seizure, confiscation of monies. And you know that what drives drug trafficking seems to be money, huge money. Have you traced monies to any of these people that you've arrested? And in what region is it?
I'll tell you absolutely. That is why the agency today has a reorganized and reinvigorated directorates for assets and financial investigations. A lot of people don't know this outside, but then, like you rightly observed, we understand the fact that behind the push to go into drug trafficking is the rabid greed or quest for money, for wealth, for opulence. And so what we're trying to do is, one, apart from deny you your freedom, arresting you, deny you, taking the drugs away from you, we also make sure that all you have acquired through this business is taken away from you. That is losing it all. Now, when we arrest anybody,
Yes.
that directorate, because we work as a network, that directorate is notified about the arrest. That's Directorate of Assets and Financial Investigation. And in most cases, they are also part of the preliminary work, because we do a lot of work before we come there. I mean, our operation is intelligence-based now. We don't just move into an arrest. We would have followed the individual, would have gathered sufficient evidence so that by the time we are arresting you, your denial may not amount to nothing. So in most cases, our assets and financial investigators are already involved, trying to trace all the assets, all the funds, all the accounts linked to an individual offender. And in that process, while a directorate is dealing with that doggy operations and general investigation, is dealing with your investigation, arresting and seizing your the drug exhibits, another directorate, that is assets and financial investigation, is tracing all your assets and accounts. And I can tell you that there is hardly any arrest that will make now that is tracing the assets and finances of the suspects are not involved. And I can tell you that because some of the cases are in court, I may not be able to mention the individuals, but I know in some recent cases there have been situations where we've traced, in a particular case, that we've traced more than 3 billion into, some suspects, transactions in some suspects' accounts. And in that particular case, I'm aware that over 100 bank accounts have been sealed, blocked, with the funds in there. Then there is also another one, a baron, that also was recently arrested, and I'm aware the same thing. In addition to the previous case I mentioned, houses across the country have been sealed by the agency, but we've not been able to make announcements or show these houses yet because we're going through the court process. So I can tell you that quite substantially, we make sure that we deny them the benefits of the process of crime.
When you get those proceeds, either they are financial proceeds or they are property proceeds, what do you do with them?
Well, they are, for us, ours is just to go through the courts, make sure that we deny them of those benefits, and in turn transfer them to the federal government of Nigeria. If they are accounts, they are, accounts, dedicated accounts in the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, where the funds are forfeited into. If there are properties, there are organs within the federal government that manage such properties, either for disposal or for some other uses.
Are you able to put a figure on some of these seizures? Are you able to put a figure?
Well, that would be very complex, because we're not the one handling the disposal of such. That's why I may not be able to say this property is worth so, but these are multi-billion assets.
Let me enter into an area that is not of common conversation. The NDLEA is also supposed to drive research, drug-related research. It's not all that crime.
Yes.
What does that mean? What does it involve?
Yeah, it's one of the mandates of the agency. And I can also tell you, I'm glad to also tell you, very good and fantastic question from you. I'm sure, probably this is the first time I'm coming across such a question. I can tell you that today, last year, with the new leadership in the agency, there is a full directorate of planning, research, and statistics set up, headed by a deputy commander general of narcotics, a woman, today. And that directorate has been driving the collection of facts and figures across all commands, all formations of the agency. Beyond that, also working with other organs of the agency and our partners to also conduct periodically, sometimes quarterly. That directorate also conducts research, sends out questionnaire to our commands, to our formations across the country, for them to get some data from within their operations, within the civil populace, and all of these are used for our planning, for certain, to understand certain developments, to interpret certain issues within the purview of our operations.
The last time I had a conversation with you, you said to me that DCP ABBA KYARI'S was with you. Where is he?
Well, I'm sure you are a media person. You would have been following the developments in that case. Interesting that indeed this time last year he was in custody, in the NDLEA custody, but as of today I can tell you that he is in the custody of the Nigerian Correctional Center.
What is the status of that case?
Well, I know that they've been charged to court, and just last week, two of his co-defendants came up with a plea bargain and were convicted and sentenced to 6 years imprisonment each. And fortunately for us, that's for the prosecution, they also agreed to serve as our prosecution witness in the cases of the other 4 suspects who are on trial at the moment. And I think the full trial for them goes on 18th, 19th, and 20th, 3 consecutive days in July. So that is the update on that case.
Now, the 2 people who were convicted last week, Tuesday, yes, they entered into a plea bargain. Yes. In other words, they are prepared to spill the beans, yes, so that you can prosecute the other suspects. You say so. Have these 2 people who are willing to cooperate told you who are the real owners of the drugs they were caught with?
Because the matter is already before the courts, I'll just implore you to wait, and you'll be shocked at some of the revelations that will be coming up from their testimonies.
Let me tackle you a little bit. Within the media circle and within gossips in the intelligence community, have you heard that that drug is owned by a general?
Well, that's what this is a matter that is already, we don't work on rumors, we work on facts and figures. That's what I said. I said when the trial commences, at least both parties in the case will be able to ask, interrogate witnesses, and the same witnesses would also be cross-examined. So all of the facts, everything you probably want to know, there you have the opportunity to know them. So let's not preempt whatever is going to happen, so that again the court were not charged for prejudice. Yeah.
I'm not going to preempt. I'm going to state a fact. Next question, Femi. These 2 suspects who have now entered into plea bargain, were arrested at the Akanu Ibiam International Airport by the police. Before the police arrested them, they had crossed NDLEA official screening with the drugs. And, let me finish, and when they were arrested, some officials of NDLEA were equally indicted. These two people have now been prosecuted. Where are the indicted NDLEA officials?
These allegations came up at the initial stage of the case, but it fizzled out because there are things that the evidence available could not substantiate, the allegation that could not be substantiated. How do I mean? Both investigations from the police and our own investigations established the fact that the officers on trial have direct relationship and contact with members of the cartel based in Brazil and Addis Ababa. Directly themselves.
The two convicted people?
No, the
Okay.
officers. Those are not officers.
Thank you.
The two convicted people are just moors, just traffickers used to bring in this thing. Forget whatever they were used to, the alleged confession. You'll probably be opportune to hear the true story when they are before the court, where they cannot tell lie anymore, where nobody can, where they cannot say anything under duress. Nobody would now force them to say something for the purpose of blackmail or whatever. But then the issue I'm trying to put across is, even from the police investigation, from the statements of the suspects on trial, they confirmed themselves that they were the ones directly in contact with. So the issue of whether the NDLEA officers were involved is out of it, because they had no relationship, they had no idea. So in essence, something's slipping all over the world, and that's why in America today, it's one of the biggest issues. So it's not as if they still sleep. I'm sure you watch, you see reports of how the organized criminal groups, built tunnels all the way from another country into the US just to traffic. So they do all manner of things to beat security checks, but ultimately what matters is, well, in situations where they are able to slip through, we don't allow them to circulate.
Can I find the Inspector General of Police not having all the information when he also asked NDLEA to look at his own staff?
Yeah, I'm sure. Don't forget that in some cases there could be immediate reactions, and we believe the first statement was an immediate reaction, but after their own investigation, they were able to establish, because from the reports, the police cooperated well with us. I won't deceive you on this, because they are from their own reports. Those involved were indicted in those reports because they made confessional statements. So it's in the, I'm not talking of even NDLEA investigation report and the police investigation report, and that's why you would have seen recently we did issue a statement where the chairman of the NDLEA commended the police IG for his cooperation and partnership with the agency, meaning that we're working in partnership, hand in hand, to ensure that we don't allow, no matter whose us is God, no matter who is involved, we don't allow this problem to fester.
Femi, am I being unkind to you if I ask you, or if I tell you this? I have it on authority that NDLEA invited DCP ABBA KYARI 3 times. Am I correct? I also have it on authority that he did not honor those invitations before NDLEA declared him wanted. Was he not invited through as a first person? Was he not invited through the office of the Inspector General of Police?
Well, your questions now, I would say, they have all been overtaken by events, because these were prior to his years, and ultimately what matters in the situation was having the suspects in custody for interrogation to make statements, and ultimately to, and all of that processes have been completed now. The matter is now before the judiciary. I'm sure you will see the police also made a statement to say we have arrested them, we have handed them over to NDLEA, and we did issue a statement same day confirming the same thing. So all of those initial had all been sorted out.
Question. On Tuesday night, I sat for 58 minutes watching a documentary on Al Jazeera dealing with the activities of drug dealers and their capacity, one, to compromise security institutions or to create conflict within security institutions. Not that I do not know that that is past. It's not possible, therefore, that some drug baron spin doctor is somewhere creating confusion. Are you careful so that you do not be the fall guy?
I agree with you, and I'll tell you that we're very conscious of this, because at a point we noticed there were some manipulations trying to create an impression that there is or there was a conflict. Even recently, last week after the two pleaded guilty, there were also attempts by these same criminal elements to create an impression that the police issued a statement to say that we tried to get the other two people into a plea bargain because we wanted them to cover the NDLEA officers indicted and all those kind of things. And I noticed the hand of some third forces, some criminal elements in an attempt to create, and I discovered that indeed police never issued a statement. These were faceless forces trying to create that impression, trying to create a conflict where none exists, and we're able to manage that situation very well. I'll tell you, I'll cite two instances where our men had actually risen above board, where others fell. One in the particular case of ABBA KYARI'S. This was somebody that arrested drug suspects and brought the exhibits to an NDLEA officer to be shared. You know, imagine what that's a huge temptation. Nobody knew, but the officer was professional enough to report to his chief executive, "Sir, this is an offer from a serving senior security officer. And from that moment, he was encouraged to play along with the hope of gathering sufficient evidence to prosecute a possible case. And that was exactly what played out. Well managed, well conducted investigation, operation, and ultimately the rest is before the public and the law courts. That is one. Another case, in fact, that one won the officer involved a National Merit Award given to him by the president. This is sometime either early this year or late last year, one of our officers who was offered some $25,000 by a baron who actually sent a consignment of cocaine via the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, and they offered the officer involved who intercepted the bag and he notified his superiors, and he was also asked to play along so that we could get, and they were able to do it professionally to the point that the baron himself was encouraged to now fly down to Nigeria to come and pay the balance of They negotiated bribe so that he could get his consignment released to him. That's a consignment worth billions. Unfortunately for him, he's paying for it today. And his bribe that was offered in cash and all of that are now being used as evidence to prosecute him in the law court. So that gives you a picture of what the new NDLEA is all about now and what the officers have been motivated to do, to see the national interest far and above their individual selfish interest.
If you look at the operations and activities of drug barons, they are sophisticated. Some have aircraft, some have ships, and they have lethal weapons to use. We began this conversation by looking at the spiraling crime and trying to build a nexus. If more drugs are coming into the country, as much as you're working very hard, are you painting the picture of when these dealers be so sophisticated as to have their own cars, their own aircraft, helicopters and things? Do you have the capacity to rein them in and bring them to book? In terms of the funds, in terms of manpower, in terms of equipment.
Fighting these menace, you need a lot of intelligence, you need technology. And I can tell you that we have the advantage of these two critical elements. As I said, we're working with the Drug Enforcement Administration in the US, DAE. We're working with Border Force and other enforcement agencies in the UK. We're working with the Germans, with the French, with the Saudis, with the Indians, with, including even the Brazil. Everybody is coming on board because they are seeing what the new NDLEA is doing in Nigeria. So everybody is coming on board. Okay, we want to work with you because any information passed to NDLEA automatically translates to successful operation. No leakage, no compromise. So, in essence, I can tell you that today, if there is any place that is most difficult for global drug cartels to penetrate, is Nigerian borders. What the men and officers of the NDLEA, starting from the chairman chief executive, what we are doing is God's work. It's in obedience to what God wants for our nation. It's in line with what the patriotic people of Nigeria want for our country, and it's in line with service to humanity.
Well, Femi, let me thank you for coming to the show, and let us wish all of us a drug-free Nigeria.
Very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Babafemi. Now, Lagos was on its knees last week. Knees knocked senseless by a crippling petrol scarcity. The cost of diesel was inching towards 1,000 naira per litre, and so companies were groaning under power bills that threatened their operations and even existence. The National Bureau of Statistics released inflation figures, which housewives all over Nigeria mocked as unrealistic, because the cost of running homes was threatening marriages. The federal government said it could not intervene in the price of diesel because it has been deregulated. But motorists remained in queues because transporters and marketers complained that the cost of trucking products to the stations using diesel trucks was making the 165 naira per litre pump price of petrol a business disaster. Now, in the Abuja city center, fuel stations displayed pump price of 165 naira per litre, but there's no stock. But a kilometer away in the Nyanya Maraba Masaka Kefi axis, or the Kuje Abaji Lokaja Road axis, petrol is available in all stations, but between 195 and 225 naira per litre. You drive in, fill your tank, and drive away. So, who is pretending? Well, the Association of Petroleum Product Distributors and Marketers weighed in last week and insisted that petrol must remain at 65 naira per litre. They also want the federal government to pay their members accumulated subsidy claims. Correspondent Nasir Usman was at the event where the marketers and transporters spoke, and he now reports.
Transporters and petroleum product distributors say there will be no increase in pump price of petrol, even as petrol scarcity persists in many cities in Nigeria. They stated this position on Wednesday at a press conference in Abuja. The two groups, however, want downstream regulatory authorities to pay their members unpaid subsidy claims, which they say is running them out of business. The national president of Independent Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, Chinedu Okoronko, said Nigerians should not panic as there is enough premium motor spirit (PMS) with the NNPC to meet demand. He added that there is not going to be an increase in the price of petrol as it remains 165 naira per litre.
For the president to have put in this 10 naira is something that will also ginger people to still know that there is still hope in spite of a hopelessness situation. I think we must be calm, not to panic, no increment.
President of Association of Distributors and Transporters of Petroleum Products, Aditop, Lao Danzaki, lauded President Muhammadu Buhari for subsidizing the PMS in the interest of ordinary Nigerians. Danzaki said the independent marketers and transporters suffer a lot as it takes them 6 to 8 months before they get back their money invested in bridging the transportation cost of petrol, forcing some of the oil marketers to go out of business.
We are the people that invested our money, and anybody that makes his investment, he needs a returns. And the federal government is doing well.
The executive director of Benham Group, Dr. Ibe Morris, a consultant to Aditop and Ipman, called on downstream regulatory authorities to reconcile the challenges of pricing, distance in transportation, and other variables to come to a common ground and discuss with the federal government to bring an end to the first challenges in the country. He added that members deal with a variety of factors which impact their pricing depending on the zone being operated from, which is distant from the storage facilities to the filling stations.
Right now, I don't know the last time you queued up in a filling station to buy fuel. Some filling stations have 3, 4, 5 miles, and we are pleading that they should come to the table, help our members access these funds. This way they can have the financial capacity to keep buying products and distributing products. So I can't put a time frame on them, but I plead with them. I urge them to please come to the table as quickly as possible so that this matter can be resolved and the generality of Nigerians can go to bed, sleep, and comfortably buy fuel and go about their businesses.
The transporters and distributors thanked President Muhammadu Buhari for his support and also appreciated the support from the NNPC, PPMC, and other government agencies to stabilize and smoothen the supply of products across the country. In Abuja, Nasiru Usman for Signature Show.
Well, thank you, Nasir. And now to our thank you. Patricia Owaje King, Benga Oyebola, Odunayo Ojo, and Mikel Abdul. This is the quartet that makes up the Midnight Crew, a faith-based music group that changed gospel music in Nigeria from a soulful, supplicatory, salvationary journey to a jazzed-up, jumpy, wild worship music. They ignited the jazzed-up gospel fire that has refused to quench with the heaven-stirring song, Igwe.
Igwe, kò sí bàbá bí rẹ̀, kò má sọ Ọlọ́run bí rẹ̀. Igwe, ẹ bá mi pọ́n Ọlọ́run tóbi. Ọba ńlá, ọba tó ga. Ẹ bá mi pọ́n Ọlọ́run tóbi. Ètùmàrè, ọba tó ga. Ẹ bá mi pọ́n Ọlọ́run tóbi. Ọba ńlá, ọba tó ga. Ẹ bá mi pọ́n Ọlọ́run
you, Midnight Crew. Let's meet you in the dawn of heaven. And that's our package for this Sunday. I'm Mabus Njoko. Good afternoon.